Today, I would like to introduce James Nestor, a journalist, a writer for many high-profile magazines. He's a very prolific author, and he wrote different books. One book that is very famous, Deep Sea, was published for National Geographic, and the book is about one of James' passions, the underwater world, and in search of the secrets of this rich habitat, he meets free divers who can dive more than 100 meters unaided. He swims with animal rights activists attacking tracking devices to sharks, and he works with and swims along with whales and glowing jellyfishes and goes to the bottom of the ocean in Puerto Rico. He most recently wrote the book Breath, The New Science of a Lost Art, an international bestseller and by today translated in more than 30 languages. There are many things that fascinated me about your approach to scientific work and research, because you not only participated in research projects yourself, but you also took the time that it was needed to round up this research project. And I believe you worked on the book for many, many years. So welcome, James Nestor. I'm so happy to meet you here today for this interview. And the success of your book, Breath, shows that something that is so profound and intuitive, such as our breathing, became something that we somehow need to relearn. And the way we breathe plays a vital role in our health and our happiness. And you don't have to commit to meditation or to regimented breathing practice. All it takes is consistent breath in everyday life. And I would like to talk with you about this in our first part. And what I would like to know, we tend to understand so much about every aspect in life, but how come that we know so little about the most essential thing in our life, our breath, James?
I think that we've forgotten that, just like how we've forgotten how to eat properly, how to exercise properly. It's so ridiculous to me that we now need to relearn how to do the most basic things in life because we're so divorced from the environment in which we naturally evolved. So breathing is another part of that. A lot of people say, well, I can breathe. I'm breathing right now. I'm alive. But just getting by is different from being healthy. Just like you could eat a bunch of fast food and get by, but that doesn't mean you're healthy. So when you look at breathing, there's a number of reasons why we have lost really this ability to breathe properly. And some of it is tied to changes in our facial structure. Some of it is environmental pollution. Some of it is posture. But all of these things tied together to make us the worst breathers in the animal kingdom. I know that seems pretty far-fetched, but it's absolutely true if you look at the percentages of the population that are suffering from respiratory dysfunction.
Mhm. Yeah, thank you. That is incredible that we are the worst breather in the world. In your book, you describe your first contact with proper breathing techniques after suffering from breathing difficulties for a long time. Can you describe your first contact with a proper breathing technique, and how and how did you discover its effects? I know it was in a breathing session that you got in contact, but was it really the first time? And what happened in your body? This is basically what I'm interested in.
Well, I exercised all the time and I thought I was healthy. I was eating the right food, sleeping, all of that, but I kept having respiratory issues. And I was noticing this when every year I would be diagnosed with bronchitis, which would oftentimes end up becoming pneumonia, mild pneumonia. It was not a big deal. I would go to my doctor and he or she would give me antibiotics, which worked, absolutely worked. And I'd be setting on my way. And then I'd be back there the next year with the same exact problem. And then back there the year after that. So after a while, after a number of years, I thought maybe something is wrong with my breathing. And my doctors thought not. until I talked to a friend who was a very progressive MD, and she mentioned, yeah, maybe a breathing class could help open up your lungs, get you to breathe more fluidly. She is the one who told me that pneumonia almost always takes root in the dead space of your lungs. So if you're not breathing properly, if you're breathing very stilted, that is stale air can accumulate, and that's where problems get involved. So that all made perfect sense to me, and I went into a breathing class, and I felt psychologically different. I didn't know if it was going to do anything for my health, and haven't had an issue with my breathing since. So as a journalist, that got me interested, but I wasn't going to write a memoir about breathing. So I didn't know what to do with this story. So I sat on it for years and years and years until I got a bunch of other information regarding breathing that I thought maybe there was enough to make a book. And that's what I did.
Yes, that's so fascinating, because pick me up here on your research journey. When did the thought manifested that you actually want to write a book on breathing? When did it happen?
This
Or
was
was
so
it a
long ago. So I did that breathing class maybe 11 years ago, and really profoundly affected me in all the right ways. And I kept doing it. So I kept going back there and doing it. I said, this is great, but I do a lot of things that I don't write about. This was just for my own personal interest and my own personal health. So it was after several years that I kept hearing crazy stories from freedivers about how you could not only use your breathing to dive with whales and dive with dolphins and hold your breath for 10 minutes at a time, but you could use your breathing to heat your body up and to heal it of chronic conditions, which as a science journalist, I thought was garbage. And then I went out in the field and talked to several experts over several months, found out so much of what they were saying was correct.
And it was the moment when you really thought, okay, it's going to be a book at the end? Or was it more the deep interest in this topic that got you? Or was
I
it
thought
always your goal? Oh, it's going to be a book with all the information I collect here.
never ever thought it was going to be a book ever. I thought it could make for an interesting magazine story. So I started laying it out as a magazine story. I said, this is definitely not a magazine story. So I mentioned it to my agent, who I really trust. She's been my agent forever. And she's the one who told me, this is a terrible idea for a book. So go work on something else. And so I did for a number of years. I worked on something else, but I kept finding things, it was always in the back of my mind. And I kept finding things that did not make sense, that were contributing to a larger story that had not been told. So it wasn't until years after I was told this was an awful book idea that I came back to her and I said, I think you're wrong. I think that there's something here. And that took months and months and months to convince her. And she's like, maybe, let's see. Let's go talk to your publisher. And here we are.
I hope she's still your agent nowadays.
She is. I absolutely trust her, and she's as shocked by all this as I am. So.
Yes, I mean, it's obviously it's surprising, because it's, as I said at the beginning, it's so fundamental that we might don't even think about it. We don't, it's so natural. It comes natural, but it actually doesn't. Our breath is actually something that has changed, as you wrote also in your book, about over the years, due to stress, to you said anatomical reasons. Can you explain this a little further? How come our breathing methods has changed?
So first of all, the thing that really convinced me, it's one thing to say environmental stresses. Of course, those contributed to poor breathing, just like they contribute to lack of exercise, just like they contribute to poor eating habits, right? So that all makes sense, but that wasn't a really convincing angle until I met anthropologists who showed me ancient skulls, and all of our ancestors, all of them, didn't matter if they were from Europe or Asia or Africa, South America, Polynesia, they all had straight teeth. All of them had straight teeth, perfectly straight teeth, and a completely different facial structure. And with this different facial structure, they had much wider sinus cavities, much easier for them to breathe. So they very, very likely didn't suffer from this gamut of respiratory dysfunctions that we suffer from snoring, sleep apnea, other issues. They couldn't because their sinus cavities were far too large. And then you can pinpoint the time around 300 years ago that our faces started shrinking. So this is why we have crooked teeth. People say, oh, it's genetic. Oh, crooked teeth. It's just like a problem everyone has. No, this is something that humans created. This is a problem we created. We have crooked teeth because our mouths have grown so small that teeth have nowhere else to grow in, but to grow in crooked. And with that small mouth, it makes it harder to breathe. So that's contributed to a rash of chronic respiratory issues. No one realizes it because you look around, everyone you see has a small mouth. Most people had crooked teeth or braces to fix it. And braces, from what we're finding, can contribute to making that small mouth even smaller and lead to further breathing problems. So we've really done ourselves in as far as breathing is concerned. And just because we've done this doesn't mean we're hopeless. We acknowledge the problem, we can fix it. And that's what the book is about.
Yeah, it's amazing. The book caught me because I do yoga myself. I do meditate, and I know how to, when I breathe correctly, what it makes me feel and what it does to me. But I'm so surprised when you say, how our physiognomy has changed, that never ever somebody thought to bring this up to explain this way the changement of breathing. And it seems like the ancient cultures, they knew about the importance of proper breathing back then, right? How come we forgot about it? What do you think?
So people have been bringing this up, and this is what was so frustrating to me. So this is not my hypothesis or my theory. I'm a journalist. I go out in the field, I talk to the experts, and I convey what the experts are saying, right? That's my job. My job is not to come up with these crazy new belief systems or anything. But people have been talking about this for more than 100 years. Scientists and dentists have been talking about our mouths are shrinking, our breathing is suffering. And there's a wealth of studies down at Stanford, south of my house. For 50 years, they've been studying this. No one's been listening. So the ancients knew all about this, which is why if you look at, especially Native Americans, had this whole system of developing proper facial function so that you could breathe better. And they believed it made you more attractive, which does, right? To have this big prognathic face. So they had different ways of rearing infants, placing them in a very specific position so that they wouldn't mouth breathe. Mouth breathing was believed to be this extremely rude, insulting thing. Always had their mouth shut, tongues on the roof of their mouth. And if you look at ancient Native American skulls, they all had straight teeth. And you can go down to South America and see the same thing. So we've lost this because we are detached from the environment that we're supposed to be in, right? We live in a modern world in houses under artificial lights, eating processed foods. So most of us breathe like this with our mouths open. At night, more than 65% of us are breathing like this. This is not natural. Look at any other animal. They're not breathing like this at night. And it's really causing a whole rash of different health issues for us. And again, not my theory. We've known this for a long time. No one's been paying attention.
Yeah, this is, and now your book has changed it. It has given, yeah, the public attention to this theme, and I think your success speaks for it. And you once said, and I found it very interesting, we cannot make money out of breathing, and that's why there hasn't paid so much attention to it. Do you still believe this?
Well, people are trying right now. There's a whole rash of new products trying to get people to pay to breathe. And some of these products work great, right? They can help exercise the diaphragmatic muscles to allow you to expand your lungs more, to allow you to open up. All yoga was designed to be is a technology of breathing. You stretch, you breathe. You can't do yoga unless you're breathing. And if you're not breathing properly, you're not doing yoga. So I think one of the reasons that a lot of people have dismissed the health benefits of breathing is because it's so simple. They say nothing so simple can be this transformative. But if you look at our biology, if you look at how we actually work, and if you look at how dysfunctionally we're breathing right now, the simple things are the most profound things. So some people come up to me and they say, well, you know, what's the secret? You studied this for 10 years, expecting that it's going to be this very convoluted equation on how to breathe. It's not. It's going back to nature. How did we breathe before the Industrial Revolution? How do other animals breathe? Just mimic what we're naturally designed to do. And a lot of people don't like that explanation. They want some new convoluted explanation, but they're not going to get that from me. The simplest things are the most effective things.
Yeah, that's the simplest things are the most effective. That's true. Yeah, I would love to know what is your breathing techniques. Since you wrote this book, do you have changed anything in your daily routine, or how is your daily routine? What is your daily routine? How can I imagine James getting up in the morning and then doing what? Breathing, meditating, or doing yoga? What is your daily practice?
You'd be imagining that, because that's not the reality. You know, I yes, I wrote a book about this. I spent a decade in this field. I'm still in this field. I talked with all these researchers in the book. They're all my friends. They're all my colleagues right now. It's amazing. But just because I did all that, does not mean that I sit around in a robe and, you know, wear beads and breathe all day. That's just not my thing. That's something for other gurus. I'm a journalist, but that's not to say I didn't pick up some tricks, you know, along the way that have absolutely benefited me. I will mention that those simple things, how you breathe throughout the day, is much more important than sitting down and saying, I'm going to do my 10 minutes of breath work, then I'm good to go. Just like people who eat a teeny salad and say, I'm going to eat the salad, now I'm going to eat a bunch of McDonald's burgers and desserts, and I'm good to go because I had my salad. No, it's what you do the rest of the day. And again, this is not as sexy and as interesting as people want it to be, but how is your oral posture? Where is your tongue located? Are you breathing through your nose the majority of those breaths? Do you close your mouth at night? That is so important. Are you breathing through your mouth when you're exercising? Are you breathing slowly and rhythmically? Are you holding your breath? So all of these things, how you carry yourself throughout the day, is so important. That doesn't mean that breath work and breath practices aren't very important. They're a great way of resetting your respiration. So yeah, I do a practice in the morning. I do a little workout. I'll do, depends on how I'm feeling, a little kundalini, little pranayama. I do a TM practice, so that you can't do TM without having very slow rhythmic breathing. I don't know anyone that can do transcendental meditation and breathe like, it's just not going to happen, right? So you have to be breathing very slow, very fluidly. So these things go really hand in hand. Meditation and breathing go hand in hand. You can't do one without the other. I truly believe that. A lot of people think meditation is all about the mind. It's not. It's about controlling your respiration first and foremost. So beyond all those things, a few times a week, depending on my travel schedule, I have an insane schedule, I will sit aside and maybe do an online class of a 30-minute, very vigorous pranayama or Kriya or Wim Hof method, whatever. They all do the same thing. So you can pick the one that works best for you and see what happens.
So we talked about earlier that you started with the breathing class because you had health issues. Did it stop along the way, or did it come back, or was it really when you started working on the book and talking and practicing breathing, did it immediately disappear, or?
So I don't talk about this in the book because I did not want to mention this in the book, because I didn't want people to think what happened to me was going to happen for them, which is what happens all the time. I wanted to be objective and stay outside of this story. I could take people by the hand and be like, this is what I'm learning, but you need to find your own path here. That I think is my job. But I will tell you, even though I will never write about this, I haven't had an issue since then. And of course, that's not a coincidence. It's not a placebo effect. I learned how to breathe properly. And because I learned how to breathe properly, my body responded to that, which isn't to say, yeah, I get colds, I get the flu, all that stuff. But I do not have the chronic respiratory dysfunctions that I had before. And one of the most important things for fixing that was to close my mouth at night when I slept. That is so transformative. It's so simple. And this is the one thing I've heard more than anything else in the last 2 years this book has been out. Thousands and thousands of letters of people who've said this has transformed their health. You're not going to hear about it too much because it is free. Anyone can do it.
Yeah.
And it's simple, you know.
Yeah, but how can you, when you sleep at night, how would you recognize if your mouth is open or not?
You read all about this in this book called Breath that is out
No,
now,
I
everybody.
know, but
No,
you.
no, no. I'll tell you the secrets. Here we are. I might even have some tape around here. But what you do, this is what I learned from down at Stanford. I'm busily looking for some tape. I don't think I do have any. I thought this sounded crazy until I learned this from a leading respiratory therapist down there. She's like, I prescribe this to all my patients. And I said, what are you talking about? She said, yeah, have them tape their mouths. So at night, you lose conscious control. Your head's on a pillow, your muscles relax. What happens?
Yeah, you open your
When you're,
mouth probably.
yeah, when you open your mouth, you're much more susceptible to snore and have sleep apnea. So you can still snore nasal breathing, but you're much more susceptible when you're breathing through the mouth. There's no baffle for the air. It just comes in. You even breathe through your nose in very fluid breaths and try to snore, breathing slowly and rhythmically. It's really hard to do. So she said that she had been using this little piece of tape for her patients, wear a little piece of tape on their mouth. It sounded like a hostage situation to me, sounded crazy. I tried it. I watched my sleep scores just increase immensely. More deep sleep, more REM, felt so much more refreshed when I woke up. And turned out that this is a thing, and it's been a thing for a long time, but you don't hear about it because a lot of dentists and respiratory therapists tell their patients not to talk about it because if people in their departments hear that they're prescribing tape, they could get in trouble. I have no dental license, so I'm here to tell everyone to try this out. So just to be clear, it doesn't work for everybody, you know. Another thing I want to be very clear about, you don't just go from breathing through your mouth to trying to wear this at night. It's a very slow process. You put it on in the daytime for 10 minutes. How do you feel? 20 minutes the next day, 30 minutes the next day. Lie down, read a book. Can you breathe fluidly through your nose? No problems. After about a week of doing this, you can try it at night. And this is where almost everyone screws it up, is they hear about it, they say, cool, I'm going to try it at night. It doesn't work for them. They say, this is idiotic. But your body takes time to acclimate, right? And so give it time. Let this be a soft, controlled process.
Beautiful. Yeah, beautiful. Especially, yeah, it takes time. Don't be so impatient and expect something to change immediately, but take the time and maybe watch yourself, yeah, for several months, several weeks, and look what changes. Yeah, so interesting. Um, can I ask you something apart from the book? What is your lifetime goal?
Okay, I don't get these questions too often.
I know, and that's why I
Um,
thought I want to know because
well,
you do
okay, no, I like
beautiful.
this. I like this. Let's go in that direction. My lifetime goal, I want to remain curious about the wonders of the world and how the universe works. That is I am most happy. I love answering questions, but I'm most happy asking questions. I'm a journalist, and so I'm grateful every day that I get to wake up and be curious about things. So my goal is to remain curious. And the people in their 80s and 90s I know that are most physically and mentally fit are those who remain curious about everything, open-minded and curious about other people, the world, other places to go, other things to do. And I just think that that's a good way of approaching our upcoming years.
And when you just said you like to ask questions, about everything, which is beautiful. What is your new project? Is there anything you're kind of researching? And as I said at the beginning, you take your time. My impression was when I read about you, when I read your book, you take your time, you dive into it, and you take the time, which is very unusual for our fast growing, society. Everything is upbeat and everything is fast, but you take your time to really dive into research and scientific project. That was my impression. And so what is your next thing? Do you have one thing that you're working on, or one goal, or is it whatever comes up?
Oh no, I have a very clear idea of what I'm doing next. It's another thing that I've been thinking about for years and years and years. And the pieces of this puzzle have been very quickly coming together. And it's been such a thrill to go back on the road and hang out with interesting people doing fascinating things. This is my way of saying I can't tell you exactly what it is.
Yeah, I
I
understand. I
am
understand.
knee deep in it right now, and I'm having more fun investigating this world than I ever have. It is an absolute thrill to be
Wow.
on another project. And you're right, it took me years to convince myself that this is something I'm going to do. It's going to probably take me years to really cut through this, as you know, in this world where medicine, and especially other therapies that aren't accepted as part of conventional medicine, there's so much misinformation and garbage. There's garbage from the people who have not done their research, have not looked at science, saying this stuff cures cancer. And then there's garbage from conventional medicine saying, oh, this stuff doesn't do anything, it's not measurable. So you have to wade through both layers of garbage to find where the truth is. And it's usually right in the middle of these two things. And so that's what I'm doing right now.
Wow. So we're very curious, and we can stay tuned, whatever this will be. I have a feeling, but obviously I don't know. So yeah, let's come back to your life. What was your biggest turning point in your life?
Oh, my life, not my book. These are new questions for me. I think the biggest turning point in my life was when I fully quit my job. And this was, I used to be a respectable person in a suit working at an office with a staff and all that, and a very different line of work. I did this for years and wrote on the side. I wrote on weekends and wrote at night just because I loved doing it. I wrote magazine stories for years and years and years. And finally, I got to the point way too late in life. So I hope no one follows what I did in my mid-30s, where I just said, it's either now or never that I'm going to go for this or not. And during my 4-year review, I did not plan this. I just heard my boss saying the same things he said the year before and the year before that. And I just interrupted him and I said, I quit. I can't do this anymore. And I left. So
Wow. And did you have fear, or was it impulsive, or was it something that was always you an inner voice you heard? And describe it a little more.
it's funny. I'm not an impulsive person, as you can tell from the books. Like I take a long time to really, I like to work in a slow, very careful way. And when I go into something, I want to go all the way in and not regret my decisions, right? To be fully in, heart and soul, into stuff. So considering that this was rather impulsive, I had not been content with my life working this. It was very easy. Pay was good, supported bought a house, had cars and all that. But I was not fulfilled. But I also was doubting I could ever have a job that could actually support me and be fulfilling. Because I live in San Francisco. It's insanely expensive here, very aggressive. And so I should have thought that out a bit more when I quit, because it was a very difficult few years. I've never had that feeling of being fully free floating, not knowing where the next paycheck was going to be, not knowing where I was going to be in 2 months, in 6 months, a year from then. It was really hard, really, really hard, difficult, but I never regretted it. That was the thing. When I was very poor and I was like, what am I going to do? Like, do I have to duck into my retirement now, which I did. I was like, what am I going to do in 10 years? What am I going to do in 20? Do I have to sell my house? I never regretted it. I said, this is just a process. I'm going to have to figure this out. And it took a long time.
Wow, beautiful, but very inspirational. So basically follow your heart and really listen deep what your heart is telling you, and then make a decision at some point. And as you said, I think it's never too late, but you said you felt it was actually a little late. You wish you had done it earlier, but maybe it was I'm sure it was the right moment.
Yeah, and you can't look back in retrospect and be like, oh, I should have done it early because maybe things weren't set up in a certain way, but it was something that struck me. I would say, I've talked to a lot of writers, I talk at schools and all that. People are like, cool, I'm just going to quit what I'm doing. I'm going to drop out of college, be a writer. Do not do this, everybody. What I would highly suggest you do, this is probably not appropriate for this program because you're trying to inspire people, but you have to, if you want to get into the arts and be a writer, whatever, an artist, don't just stop everything and do that, because I've seen so many people do it and it was a disaster. It was pretty much a disaster for me. I made it out to the other side, but have your thing that you do and do this on the side and build that business, your creative business, slowly and carefully. And then you can cut the cord once that's really churning. But so many times people have come up to me and said, you've inspired me to quit everything, and I don't know how to write, but I'm going to figure it out. And it did not work out for them. They end up getting the same job they had a year later and regret things. So I would suggest, yeah, follow your inspiration, follow your heart, follow your soul, but do it in a mindful way. So that you can live a life that is enjoyable.
Yeah, yeah, that's true. And you have the possibilities nowadays to do, maybe a job with 50% and then try your passion on the other 30% or whatever.
That's
Yeah,
right.
so yeah, it's beautiful. When the book came out, coming back to the book, as you said, you had a different life before, and then you worked as a journalist, and you were quite famous when the book already came out. But what was with the book, when the book was born, what was the biggest changement in your life with this book?
Well, the neat thing about being a writer is you live two lives, right? You spend years and years in a room like this, not talking to anyone and being in this solitude where you're just in deep thought. I love it. It's very fulfilling for me. But then the neat thing is, right when you're about to lose it from spending so many years isolated, you get to then go out. So you get to be a public speaker, but at the same time you get to be an introvert, which really works for me. I like both of those jobs. The thing is, this book came out in May 2020. I think we all know what happened in March 2020. So I didn't get to go on tour or anything. I just sat and did Zoom stuff. So everything that was happening with the book as it was becoming more popular, it was very abstract because my day-to-day life was exactly the same every single day. I would come down to this room and do talks on Zoom with people, which was great. But you never get to see, like, you don't get to see your books in airports. You don't get to see your books, and you don't get to speak to people in public. You're just talking to individuals on. So it was this very postmodern way of experiencing this. The good news is, starting last year, I've been out on tour and I'm able to actually have that experience of meeting people and talking to people. And I love it. It's sometimes exhausting, but I love it because I feel the lessons I learned from these experts in the book, I'm able to give them to other people, and they're obviously helping. And that really fulfills me. This is free stuff that can really help people, especially with kids who are so underdiagnosed for breathing problems. So
Yeah.
yeah, it's been a complete trip. And so now I'm, out and about traveling quite a bit and just enjoying it.
Yeah, beautiful. Yeah, the Corona pandemic time. It was for publishing a book. It was definitely quite different than it would have been without the pandemic. And but I felt that nevertheless people got creative, and as you said, Zoom calls, podcasts, there were still some ways to bring out the message to the world. I have one question. Who were the people you have learned the most of in your life, and why?
I think the people I've learned the most from have not been traditional teachers, or I think it's people that I have been able to meet circumstantially through research that I've found. And these are usually people who don't have Facebook accounts, who aren't on Instagram. They're much more hidden in the world because they have other interests. They're not trying to be self-promoting.
Mm-hmm.
So many people I met on the journey of the breath journey have helped me incredibly as far as outlook on life. Same thing with free divers and people who are curious and who are exploring the limits of the human body, the things we've lost, the things we've forgotten, the things we can remember, the things that we can use to help improve our health and improve our lives. So there's too many to mention. I've learned bits and pieces from all of these people, and that's the real privilege of doing what I do, is because that's my job, to go out and talk to interesting people, which I can't imagine for me personally is the best job in the world.
Wow, thank you so much. Thank you for taking your time. And for those who haven't read Breath, I kindly recommend reading it. And yeah, we are looking forward to read more from you. And I hope you come to Europe, and I hope you come to Switzerland, and I hope you come to Germany, and maybe come for reading or come and visit us at Unity. Thank you so much.
Thank you very much for having me.